We've already looked at the origin of domesticated plants and animals in the Andes region of South America. In particular, you'll hopefully recall our discussion of the cotton pre-ceramic period, the cotton period. And we've already discussed a little bit that this may be interpreted as, for instance, like a complex chiefdom. Large sites were already existing, and this is where we have to ask questions about whether Gordon Child's 10 criteria for what makes an urban state-level society is adequate. Can you have a city with a large population and an urban nature and not have a state? It's perhaps possible, it's conceivable. And when we look at the cotton pre-ceramic, and as we're going to see here, the Chavín phase, the Chavín de Huántar is the site that we're going to be looking at, which is a pretty remarkable place. It has its origins in the culture of this area go back, large sites that go back to at least 6,000 years ago. Corral, Aspero, El Paraíso. El Paraíso was 50 hectares 6,000 years ago. So these are big sites with probably big populations and big monumental constructions that are being created as well, things like pyramids. So can a chiefdom create these? Yes, we've seen this before also in North America. We saw it at Poverty Point very early on. We also saw the enormous constructions at Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon, and also the Hopewell culture and the Ohio mound builder cultures. But let's turn our attention to Chavín de Huántar. This is really probably a religiously significant site. And the problem is we don't have a lot of excavations or even understanding of the cultures that existed over the mountains into the Amazon drainage basin. So when you get into Amazonia, we sort of lose a lot of information of what's going on. It's an impenetrable forest that archaeologists have a hard time getting into. So if it is the center of a location, that center loses its edges. And so we're unclear about what it represents in terms of a central religious place, but it does seem to be a temple of some sorts. It's located in a narrow valley on two rivers with fertile soils and grazing available. But it's very high up. It's 3,150 meters above sea level, and it's a remote location. It's not near other settlements. So, and also the two rivers are unnavigable. So you had to walk in. So there's water there, but you can't ride a boat in there. You've got to walk in, and it's very remote. So this doesn't seem to be like a political or agricultural center. It seems to be some sort of a place of congregation of some sort. So it seems to be the sort of cultural center of a wide area. But how that cultural group that all looked to this center held together, we don't fully know. So what we do know is what we found at Chavín de Huántar, and it was a it's a very large ceremonial ceremonial area with a sunken courtyard and a temple structure. And the temple structure is, we're not quite sure who would have had access to this. So as I've said, it's a spiritual or religious center where we see connections from all over different places. But who was coming to this place? Was it any old person could just come to this spiritual center, or was it only for a certain group of people? We don't know that, but whoever was coming into the temple was seeing some pretty amazing things. It was constructed with beams of light that were directed towards certain orientations. You had sculpture of all sorts of animals, snakes, eagles, jaguars, caimans on the walls. And the interior of the temple was designed to create a sense of confusion. It's you walk in and you're immediately disoriented. And so it could have been for restricted access for certain groups of people that were religious figures or shamans or something like that. And in fact, there are abundant psychoactive plants in the area where it's possible that that could have been part of the ritual to reach a liminal state where you were somewhere between life or death, between the natural world and the supernatural world, and mind-altering substances could have brought certain people to that state. And so what archaeologists employ is what we call the phenomenological approach to this, is what is it like to be in this location, and what does that tell us about how this was used and who might have used it. And we think that perhaps this could have been a place for either prophesying, so telling the future, or telling fate, or for curing people. We don't know for sure, but it seems as though there was some sort of a religious function to this. And I've mentioned before that it seems to be this center of a cultural area. We know this because the artwork that is and sculptures that are found there are bringing together elements from a wide area that aren't local, in fact. And so things like I mentioned, snakes, eagles, jaguars, caimans are all not local. You don't find those at this elevation. None of those things. Well, I guess eagles and possibly snakes, but also different types of plants, manioc, bottle gourd, hot peppers. These are native to the East Amazon lowlands. So what is it doing there? Well, maybe this was people that migrated there. It doesn't seem apparent because the foundation of this predates when we see depictions of this or movement into this area. And also it seems to have been built on local building techniques. And so it's possible that some individual charismatic person came in from Amazonia that brought ideas and maybe even plants and things and had an impact on the local community and local society that was there. Maybe it was just a powerful person and they built a big temple around this person. We don't fully know. But the artifacts aren't just from Amazonia, so it's actually a cultural center for a wide area to the west of the Andes as well, from the highlands to the coast. Textiles from 500 kilometers away, found 500 kilometers away from Chavín show this Chavín style, but there are local differences. And so it had this like a pebble in a pond. It had a ripple effect out of its center towards other areas. And it's possible that this religious system aided in the cohesion of social complexity throughout this area. And so we consider this to be sort of on a trajectory towards a larger scale identity. Can we call this a state with Chavín de Huántar as the capital? Probably not the latter. Maybe the former, but probably not a capital. We don't see any sort of evidence for this being an economic or political center. Maybe we haven't found that yet. Or maybe this is more along the lines of something like Stonehenge, that it's multiple communities that are finding a place of congregation or a place of religious centrality that holds their identities together into one. So that's all I need to say about that for the moment. We're going to come back and we'll look at the Nazca and the Moche. See you then.